means hospitals, clinics, and also a rollout of antiretroviral drugs.
Right.
In rolling out these drugs, of course, it comes with specific discipline of how to take them, and also going out to the communities out there to make them understand that this is a disease and can be contained and can be, over a period of time, dealt with. It's no longer a death sentence. We have destigmatized this disease so that people are able now to say that, yes, I have it and I'm going to get treatment. We've got programs on the radio and on television every day about AIDS, so that the stigma is now gone and people can go for counseling. In addition, we want to make sure that the drugs and to deal with HIV and AIDS become much more affordable. And clearly we don't produce these drugs, but we believe that countries like India, who have the capacity to produce and manufacture drugs, would be in a position to assist us in terms of making these drugs slightly more affordable. Currently we buy them from Europe, and clearly for them the biggest issue is the profit. In relationship with India, the biggest thing is how to save lives and not to make big profits. Sure, we understand capitalism is about making profit, but not at the expense of human lives. So we also believe in partnerships. In addressing a national concern, we believe international partnerships are important to make sure that we do address it and address it speedily and not drag it over a period of time. We are confident that we have over the top now in terms of education, information, accessibility of drugs and treatment. So we hope that from now on things are going to be better and to contain the drugs, the disease a lot earlier and speedier.
It's time to go for a break. After the break, we'll talk more about internal issues of South Africa. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. We are in talks with Mr. M.V.Sisulu, the Speaker of South African Parliament. Mr. Speaker, you know, in Africa, in South Africa, your government is planning to give back 30% of farmland to black South Africans. What will be the modus operandi of that?
Well, to start off with, the land actually was a land that belonged to the people originally. It's a land that was taken by force from the people. They were driven off their land, and they were forced to work in the mines, forced to work in the factories as laborers, cheap labor. Some of them had to work in the fields, some in the sugar cane. That includes the indentured workers who, from India who arrived in South Africa 152 years ago. So the land issue has not been quite resolved, because we believe that the people have got a right to their land, to get back the land that was taken from them. Up to now we have had a principle called willing buyer, willing seller. In other words, government would buy back some of the land that's available and distribute it. The problem with that concept is, A, it's very costly. B, it's difficult to buy back what belongs to you, because the land didn't belong to ones who own it today. It was taken away from the indigenous population. And therefore, if you say willing buyer, willing seller concept prevails, it means the price of land is going to go up and up and up, and it will be unaffordable. So we need to put a cap to it, and we need to be able to say we will buy this land, which some of it is fallow, some of it is used, and we will buy this land because we want to make sure that it is used productively. Either to produce food or whatever, it should be used productively. It should not be just a land that is there, you know, that is underutilized. Certainly we appreciate that some of the land is used for all sorts of reasons, but we would like the land to be used productively.
Right.
We would also like the majority of our people to have access to the land
Right.
that used to belong to them.
Yeah.
Not every person coming from the rural areas would want to be a farmer. Some of them want to be doctors, they wanted to be whatever.
Right.
But it should be their right to go back to the land of their fathers and forefathers if they so wish.
True.
And talking about land being used productively, it also means that government must come in to support the small farmers. On their own, it will be impossible to eke out an existence. So certainly would want government to be able to come in and support them once they have land, and of course legally acquired. Infrastructure must be developed so that there's transport of goods and services, and also certain laws need to be put in place to make sure that ordinary workers are not exploited. In other words, we were talking about remuneration if workers work on the farm. We're also talking about their rights as ordinary human beings, as South Africans. Their rights should not be less because they're on the farm than the rights of somebody in an urban setting. So yes, make land available to the people, make land to be used productively by the people, and also using the latest and best technology. We can't go back to the past and use plow oxen only. We need to use tractors, we need to use fertilizers, we need to also increase the food production, not just for our own country, but to be able to also make it available for other parts of Africa where there's food shortage and scarcity.
In redistribution policy, there will be any kind of reservation to Indians also. You know, Indians comprise over there 3% of Indians are there in your entire population, and by in providing land back to the original people or the people who went there 100 years back or 150 years back, there will be any policy to provide land to them also?
Well, you know, in providing land, we're not discriminating against, you know, the people who were part of the oppressed majority. That includes the Indians in South Africa. They're part not of the minority, of the oppressed majority. They, like blacks, had no rights. In some cases, slightly more rights than the blacks. But they were part of the oppressed majority. And therefore, would want to make sure that they are also able to benefit from whatever changes, socio-economic changes that we're proposing. In as much as all of us have benefited from the political changes where we now have freedom to vote, freedom to be voted into office, and those are not just for the majority black, but they're for everybody. In fighting for freedom, we also opened opportunities even for the whites to be able to live as free human beings in South Africa.
One more thing I wanted to ask you, that you know, India is a developing country and we are developing, the pace of development is really very fast. Same goes to South Africa also. But you know, now the developed world, they are making a major issues from last 20-25 years, climate change, environment. Don't you think that these kind of, you know, forces, the pace or the growth, they want to stop that, they want to slow that growth, and that is the reason they, the developed world, they talk more about climate change and things like that?
Well, we believe that we live in one world, and that we need to make sure that the world we live in is a world that our children, grandchildren will inherit and benefit from. So clearly, we don't think that the issues of climate change are simply a figment of somebody's imagination. This is a reality.
That's true.
But we did not cause this.
Yes.
It's an issue that started many years ago, hundreds of years ago. The developed countries developed on the basis of using their coal or whatever they had.
Exactly.
And so while we recognize that you can't turn the clock back, we also recognize that we also need to use the resources that we have, use them wisely in order to benefit. And we are saying that there is not a proportionality, but those who benefited most should share the greater burden of redressing this issue. of global warming, which is a reality, and climate change. So we all have a common responsibility to the future, to the climatic conditions.
True.
But people don't have the same responsibility in terms of who benefited most, who's more responsible. But being members of the world, we are saying, let's work together to make sure that the world we live in is a world that we would want to bequeath to future generations. Currently, with the changes in the climate and global warming, there is a great danger that some of the smaller islands, because the water level is rising all the time, some of them might just disappear.
Right, true.
So we don't want the warming to go further than 2%.
Right.
But we also want all the industries and all the developed countries to play a much more proactive role in redressing this issue of climate change and global warming.
Right, well said. One very interesting thing which you have talked about very recently about the attendance of parliamentarians, and you're working on a policy where you're going to make sure that people, the parliamentarian, should attend Parliament on regular basis. What exactly is that?
Well, you know, we have a system in our country, and I believe that it applies to most democracies that have got effective parliament.
Right.
Is that members of parliament are full-time members.
Yeah.
They're paid to be members of parliament.
Right.
And so the expectation that if it's a full-time job, they have to be there all the time.
Yeah.
Either in their constituencies, servicing the constituencies, working amongst the people, or in parliament. In parliament, looking at legislation, passing legislation, which means that they have to be where they should be and accountable.
True.
So you can't have a situation where there are members of parliament who are absent, more absent than present.
Right.
So clearly there is a register that needs to be monitored, and because they are paid full time, we expect, you know, also some contribution from them in the work of parliament.
Yeah.
So in addition to the register, we would consider other means that those who don't work should not be paid. Why pay them if they don't come to work?
Okay.
So we are worried that in our case, sometimes the legislative process is slowed down because we don't have a quorum.
Right.
Members of parliament are not in parliament. And also members of parliament might be in parliament, but they are not in the committees when they should be in the committees.
True.
The committees are engines that drive parliament. So we expect people to be there in the committees to do parliamentary work, and also make sure that the committees do the work assigned to them.
It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. In our next episode, we'll again come with a special person. Please keep watching Lok Sabha television. Thank you.